Alice from Alice's Garden to Plate, where I connect the garden to plate. I did a in-person free course on food preservation. Regardless if you're a gardener or someone that gets your produce from the grocery store or farm stand, this is going to help you. It is a really long video originally, but I shortened it to the highlights. And I also, for your convenience, made it in chapters. So if there's a certain subject matter that interests you, speed along. Towards the end of the video, I'm also going to be doing my favorite pictures over the years of food preservation and making recipes. So look forward to that. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our course on food preservation. Whether you grow your own produce or purchase it, you know how much money and effort goes into getting food fresh and on the table. With the right preservation methods, that investment can last much longer, reducing waste and ensuring your food is safe to enjoy. In this session, we'll walk through safe, science-based techniques for canning, dehydrating, fermenting, and freezing, and refrigeration of our produce. These methods follow trusted USDA guidelines and research-based recommendations from college extensions. By staying up to date, avoiding rebel recipes that cut corners, you can preserve your harvest with confidence and peace of mind. So we're going to start off with your printout here. It's going to go over what is botulism. I gave you a very in-depth description of what it is and how to prevent it, so I'm just going to give you the layman's terms so it's nice and fast and easy to understand. So botulism itself is a toxin produced from a said bacteria that's in our soil and it's in our vegetables. And there are ways that it likes to be in the environment. Bacteria have spores because they have to reproduce, correct? So when you cook, you are taking care of the main bacteria, but they can live in boiling conditions, the spores. So that's why you continue with the safe guidelines and making sure there's not an environment that they can exist in. So when we get into canning, I'm going to break that down for you and what kind of environment. Another thing too, that people are like, oh, I'll smell this bacteria, I'll taste it. No, it's undetectable. And it can be lethal and it can cause health issues. So that is something to be concerned with. Shelf stable. The first one that I highly suggest is ballmasonjars.com. They have a course that's free right there. They want you to use their products with certainty and make sure you're efficient with it. They also, the National Center for Home Food Preservation has recipes and also step-by-step. That is an excellent source. Do you all know what a college extension is? So signed up for their free classes of pressure canning and for home preservation, for dehydrating and all of that. They give you that. And once you're in, what's really awesome about it is colleges stay up to date. They're constantly testing recipes that, remember I said rebel recipes? That is when they do old school, like you ever see people post a picture of a jar upside down? You're like, what's with that? That's called open kettle. That's for many generations people did that, but the college extensions tested it to see if those spores were alive, and they found them. So that's a rebel canning that you do not want to do because it will be in there. What's also nice about canning is when you open a jar, it's like having your entire summer. All of your work, all of that growing, all that flavor is there. And there are times when you don't feel like cooking, right? And you don't want to go to the grocery store. And what's nice is you can grab it off your pantry. You know it's safe, open it, make a quick, easy meal right then and there. Because sometimes we lose power, right? What happens with our refrigerators, our freezers, stuff like that? They go down, you have your food safe. How do you make an environment that those spores cannot live in? You all know what potential hydrogen is, pH. What that is acidity versus alkaline. There is a rate. 4.6 is very acidic. It's like straight acid pretty much, and going lower. So 4.6 is what your ideal range is when you are trying to can, because those spores cannot live in it. Removing the air through the water bath or by pressure canning, that they can't live in it. Water bath gets up to 212, where pressure canning gets up to 240 to 250 degrees. So which recipes would you go for? So stuff that is like fruit, you want a water bath, because if you put it too hot, you're gonna make all of your sweet stuff very bitter. So that's why water bathing goes to certain things. There are more acidic things like fruit. The low acids like meat, and like if you wanted to do your green beans, for example, and you just want to cook them, that goes into pressure canning. When you want to make soups, pressure canning, because all of that stuff can go in there. And a lot of people will just cook a soup and think they can pressure can it. Only do the safe recipes, because what happens is they are not tested to make sure all those pathogens are out, even though it got to a high enough temperature. But a lot of these recipes too are considering, they're from chefs. They consider your textures. You don't want to cook that soup and then it'd be straight mush after, right? So we want really good recipes that taste good. So that's why another reason that you want to do that. Do the college extension, what's nice about it is you can send your recipes from generations. Like, you know, great grandma's recipe. You can submit it to them and they will update it for you to tell you how to make it newer. So that's an awesome thing too that you have. And also with the college extensions, you have access to their recipes. They're more up to date than what we all know is the Ball Canning book, the blue book. They have more recipes that are available. They're forever getting cool things, and they're ever making science, because it grows with us, right? Our vegetables are not what our grandparents had, so we have to keep advancing, and the college extensions stay with that. And you're guaranteed either by ball or 4 jars for 18 months sealed. So a lot of you are like, okay, how long can a canned good last? So there's a use by date for the recipes. Most recipes say a year, because it tastes best eaten within a year. But if that jar is sealed and they say you had 18 months, it's just gonna depreciate the value of flavor a little bit, but it's not gonna spoil because the seal is intact. Is dehydration. We all understand that it is dehydrating a fruit and a vegetable, and there's certain temperature. This bag has a non-BPA, that means zero toxin in the plastic. It's reusable, it's washable, even into the dishwasher. But I just dehydrated some lemongrass. Let me tell you, that's a process. My Cosori, C-O-S-R-I, is a really good one, and it's on the counter. It costs me around $150, but it dries things beautifully. But then I have other models that are plastic and that are, you know, more cost effective as well. But I dried this at 125 degrees because I want it to be crisp. And then you see this little white packet right here? That is called desiccant. And what is desiccant? It's silica. It's going to absorb any moisture. So in this bag right here, I have my dehydrated item. I have, in case, because I, like Bethany, I dry it to a bone crisp to make sure there is no bacteria. And if anything is possibly getting in here for backup storage, I have that food grade desiccant. We talked about oxidation. What is that? Like, you ever notice that it discolors and it loses flavor, and that's what oxygen is going to take over your product, correct? Well, you have a vacuum sealer. This goes on top of mason jars. Mason jars are the most ideal storage device because you see how it's glass, cannot be anything going into it, and it does not give anything out to it, meaning it's non-porous, so it's sterile. Glass is a sterile product, so I've been slowly converting all of my stuff for when after I cook to going to glass. Because one, you ever notice all that corroding from when we have pizza sauce and stuff in our containers? Well, that's gonna hold bacteria. Glass does not. So mason jars are affordable. They have them in all of the stores. So what you do is you just put on a lid, and then this machine goes on top of that. It pulls all the air out. So like with my produce, like if I had, we'll get into refrigeration in a moment, but dehydrated goods, I have stuff that I want to keep really nice and crisp and hard, so I'll take the food grade desiccant, remove the air, and it's gonna last years. Lacto fermentation. A lot of you buy produce, right? And lacto fermentation, what it is a good flora, a good bacteria. The vegetables themselves have a natural sugar. And what happens with that is you put in a salt brine, which is water. I always suggest spring water. Don't use tap, because the fermentation from the chlorine, it will be canceled and it won't do anything. So lacto fermentation, use spring water. Canning salt is the best salt to use for food preservation. Canning salt has zero anti-cake. It is the salt ground to a powder, and it's so fine that it dissolves even in room temperature. You just gotta whisk it. Instantly dissolves. It's so easy to use. So canning salt is ideal for food preservation. Mason Tops is a company how I 100% trust. They have a free blog and how-to guide to use their products, and their stuff is very affordable. That's on your printout there, who to use for Mason Tops. They even have a kit with their recipe book if you don't want to go and use a blog. Fermented red kraut is put out, but I keep it nice and cold, because after you're done with the lacto fermentation, which is a probiotic, by the way, it needs to be refrigerated, but it can last between 3 to 6 months. You're not canning, you're taking something and fermenting it, which gives a light flavoring, by the way. You get an interesting tangs and a flavor profile that's naturally occurring. So it's actually really easy, if you're not ready to get into canning, to make your food last longer in your fridge. So freezing, we talked about flash freezing, correct? So you just take the tray, like she said, put the berries flat, and you make them really get hard. And then one of the things that I like to use is those, you ever see those vacuum sealing bags that get real tight? Well, what they do is no oxidation, right? So I freeze it so I don't have juices going everywhere in the bag. Nobody wants that. And then, so I freeze it hard, because also for flash freezing, you can grab a couple berries. They're not like all mushed together and you're worried about like it's all wet and stuck. With flash freezing, you don't have that issue. Blanching. All vegetables have an enzyme, and what do enzymes do? They break down. So we want to get rid of that enzyme so our food doesn't keep breaking down. So blanching is where you take water and you throw in a tomato to get the skin off. They call that blanching for that. And then they also, like, I just had green beans up to my eyeballs. I was like, what am I gonna do with all these green beans? So what I did is I turned around, and it was not even a full minute and a half. It stayed in the water. And I pulled it out, put it in an ice bath, cooled it off, and then I put it in those shrink bags. It's gonna taste like the day. It's gonna be barely cooked, and I can finish cooking it later, and it's gonna keep its color. Let's talk about refrigeration. Remember I told you non-porous, it won't contaminate, or things cannot get into it, and it will not contaminate what you have. You ever notice that if you put strawberries in a mason jar that they seem to last a lot longer? There's a reason. When you have the lid on and you got the ring on, you notice how air can't get in, but air can gently come out. So I've had strawberries and other things I cut, like if you're trying to prep for the week and you don't want to spend an hour and a half just for a half-hour meal cook, you can cut your carrots, you can cut your peppers, you can do all of that. It'll let some of the natural gas that plants produce come out, but nothing can get in there. So therefore you won't have a oxidation problem again. So you can remove the air by doing this. But one of the things I suggest with refrigeration is if like you just bought the strawberries and you want to wait for like a week and a half to get to them, that don't wash them, just throw them in the jar, because fruit has a natural preservative on it for itself in order to last. And then when you're ready to use, wash it. Your stuff will last a lot longer that way. The other thing on your paper here, when it comes to refrigeration and freezing, they have the same FSIS USDA.gov. That gives you all of the charts of how long you're allowed to have certain things frozen. Like when it comes to meat, to refrigeration, how long certain foods are. There's no second guessing. All of their information is right there for you to have that.